Sabah everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the brand new Samsung S21 FE. Today I want to talk to you guys about some of the main benefits of this device, the features that this device obviously offers us. But not only that, this also offers us the ability of talking a little bit about timing and pricing of this device of when it was released. This is the fan edition of the S21 of 2021 and we are at the beginning of 2022. This is TK and this is the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE. Like and subscribe and make sure you hit that bell icon so that you're always notified to whenever we have new videos on the channel. So there's going to be a few colors of this device as I'm showing you right there from CES 2022. I got a hands-on with it over there. This color is actually very nice. The material that we have here is basically consistent all across the back. It is supported by a 4500 milliampere battery, wireless charging, reverse wireless charging, a triple camera stack, a 12 and 8 and a 12 megapixel sensors, capable of shooting all the way up to 4K 60 frames per second, a dual tone LED flash. On the left side, we pretty much just have basically one of the antenna bands. This is going to be supporting the 5G radios that we have in here. On the right side, we have a volume rocker, a power button, and of course, one of the other bands for radio. So this is how Samsung's able to get us some of the fastest connections. And I was actually very surprised how fast this device was able to clock in on a speed test, because I actually was comparing it to my S21 Ultra, which in theory should have been a much better version of this phone. Now on the front, we have a 6.4-inch 1080p 120 Hz refresh rate display. We have a fingerprint sensor built in to the display as we've seen with other S21s. On the top, we have one of the microphones for the cameras, of course, a triple camera stack on the back, a 32 megapixel camera in the front. On the bottom, we have a SIM tray supporting one SIM card, a microphone, and a bottom firing speaker married to the top earpiece to provide a stereo speaker experience. The display right now, I have a glass protector installed on here. There's a separate video that I dropped for that. But overall, looks and works very nicely. The fingerprint sensor works really nice. And of course, camera experience is going to be a little bit different than what we've seen, but definitely one of the better options we have from Samsung to this point, until we see what comes out with the S22 series. There's going to be a few versions of this device. The base model is going to have 128 gigs of internal storage without expandable storage and 6 gigabytes of RAM. Now there's going to be a 128 8 gigabytes version of that, as well as a 256 8 gigabytes model. The one we have here is the 128 6 gigabytes, and of course, there's a few other color options as I mentioned to you guys. You're able to pick one up with your personal preference. And I did drop a separate video for the cases in case you want to be able to get some cases to protect it with that glass protector that we have in here. Snapdragon 888 is going to be powering this version of the device since it's going to be the US version. Outside of the US and Europe and other regions, it's going to be running the Exynos 2100. So in India and Europe, it's going to be basically running the Exynos processor version of it. As I mentioned, 4500 milliampere battery, 25 watt charging, as well as wireless charging. So some of the main benefits that you get in there. And of course, out of the box, released with Android 12 with One UI 4.0. So if we scroll all the way to about, you can definitely see Android 12 in all its glory. And we can see right there, Android 12 running on this. So this is something that is very nice. Now, most of the S21 series have already been updated into Android 12 by now, but if you haven't received it, at least this version of it is running. The material that we have in here is a little bit different than what we've seen with the S21, where we had the dual tone configuration. The FE model just copies and has one tone kind of running all across. Reminds me a little bit of their A series of back. So the material on the back feels a little bit more like an A series, but the design is definitely the S21 series from 2021. Now the UI elements is very simple. We have the Google Feed on the left, the app drawer. This is standard One UI 4.0. All the different toggles that we have at the top. We do have DeX support in here, linked to Windows, of course. We also have the ability of turning on camera access and microphone access if you want to turn those off. Enhanced processing is something that we probably didn't know about, but it is also in features in here. If you jump into enhanced processing, by default, this is turned off, which means the phone is by default throttled by Samsung so that you have a much more uniform experience, but not necessarily the full potential of the 888. So if you do want to turn it on, you can actually go in directly into the battery settings, or you can just turn it on directly by adding the toggle to your notification panel. From the settings there, we can jump in directly in here, and then we can actually check out the display area. We have the ability of turning on motion smoothness. Now that's 120 frames per second for the 6.4 1080p panel, or 60 frames per second. We have screen mode here, font size, different options as well, and of course accidental touches, and of course touch sensitivity, which I do recommend turning on if you're going to be installing a glass protector. It seems like it's working perfectly fine for me, but in case you need that, you can definitely customize it there. As far as basically security and all of that, all the features of Android 12 have come through. Advanced features as far as Lab, Android Auto, all the different options, side key, motion and gestures and all of that, one-handed mode, Bixby routines if you want to use those are all there. You still have the side launcher present here. You're able to customize it and add different apps to it. Works really nice. And one of the really nice things I like about it is it also supports Good Lock. So if you're familiar with Goodlock, I didn't install all these modules, mostly because I just barely installed it, but it is available, at least on the 888 Qualcomm Snapdragon Edition in the US. I can't speak to all of the regions in the world, but definitely in the US, Goodlock is supported, and there's a lot of modules that can help us customize it. Yesterday, I did a speed test between the S21 FE and the S21 Ultra, again, running the latest version of the software, both of them running Android 12 with One UI 4.0 with the January security patch update. Now, one thing I did notice is out of the box, I was very surprised why and how that the FE, the S21 FE, although on T-Mobile, was able to clock in. As you can see, both T-Mobile networks, both connected, and both user location. You can see latitude 3.414. We were in the same spot within feet of each other. And it was basically up to 500 on the S21 Ultra and up to almost 800 on the S21 FE. So definitely connectivity is not going to be a problem. While I was at CES, we also did a speed test on the Verizon version of this phone, as I'm showing you right now. And you were able to also almost get there to about 1,000 megabits down. And that was indoors at the CES in the central hall. Again, overall, games are going to be basically running pretty standard here. This version has 6 gigs of RAM, and personally, I'm going to say this. If you're looking to get a phone that's going to last you at least a couple of years, my recommendation is to go with the 8 gig 128 at the bare minimum, or even go to the 8256 since we cannot expand the storage on this. It's going to be a little bit more than the starting price, but at least what you're getting there is somewhat more of a future-proofing and storage capability. We don't have expandable storage, and we have no way of actually upgrading the RAM down the road. So for the most part, an 8256 configuration I think will last you quite well. Now jumping into the camera experience, as I mentioned, we have a triple camera stack on the back, a 12 and 8 and another 12 and a 32 on the front. We have similar modes that we've seen before: portrait mode, photo mode, video mode. And of course, we have the ability of jumping in. We have pro video, night shot, photography, AR doodles, and similar things that we've seen with the S21. I will say one thing though before we get into the video sample is if you want to shoot at 4K 60 frames per second, it doesn't shoot in 8K, it's going to limit you into actually using just the primary sensor. So I'm going to drop down from 4K 60 to 4K 30. I can start using all 3 lenses, the ultra wide, the telephoto, and of course where we have this primary shooter. But 4K 60 on this system can only be shot on the main sensor on the back as well as the front facing camera on this one. So you can shoot 4K 60, just keep in mind the flexibility with the lenses is not the same as some of the other S21s. But for me, I prefer to shoot 4K 60 as I feel like that gives us some of the best best video for creatives because it allows me to actually slow down the footage and also has a really good source material to be able to work with. Again, mentioned we have a few other options in there. Let's go ahead and jump into a quick sample of the front-facing camera and the back-facing sensor at 4K 60 frames per second. Using the primary sensor on the back gives us the ability of recording at 4K 60 frames per second. There's no 8K recording, and if we try to shoot at 4K 60, we don't have the way of using the ultra-wide or any of the other options that we get in normal video mode. So something is a little bit different here, even though it's running the 888, and technically this is very similar to the S21. The experience is a little bit different when it comes to the camera. We're still able to use it, and as you can see, the audio and video looks pretty good. There's a little bit of wind around me. So let's go ahead and switch over to the front-facing camera. Went ahead and switched over to the front-facing sensor. Here, we're capable of shooting 4K 60 frames per second. Again, similar to what we've seen with the other devices. And here, actually, there's only one lens, so there's no other focal length. So overall, the performance is pretty much what you're expecting. There's a little bit of wind around me, so hopefully the audio is focused on me. We're recording at 4K 60 and enjoying the best that the 888 performs on the S21 FE. No 8K on the back, but 4K 60 on the main sensor on the front and on the back. And as you can expect there, the audio and video solution work very nicely. You do have the Pro Mode version in the software in here in the camera that enables you to use Bluetooth audio as well as also internal audio and Bluetooth combined together. So there's a few other options available. And again, 4K 60 on the front-facing camera is very nice. I'm going to go ahead and put the audio here all the way to 100%. We're going to play our favorite song, Alex Crindo Jumbo by NCS release. And we're going to basically demo the speakers here, the bottom firing speaker as well as the top earpiece to give us stereo speakers.
Jack it up.
Definitely sounds great. Again, audio experience should be as expected from the other S21s that we've seen before. So my experience with this phone is literally within 24 hours. So this is pretty much my 24-hour impressions of using this device. I'll start by saying that a lot of the functionalities that we have in here feel very familiar. This is an S21 at the end of the day, and it is a fan edition, so a few modifications to what we saw last year, but for the most part, it still feels like an S21 from what we've seen. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think the S21 from 2021 did have 8K recording, since we know, that the, I think if I'm not mistaken, the Snapdragon 888 can support it, but it could be limited by the sensors that we have on the back. Again, we have a 12, an 8, and a 12 megapixel sensor on the back, and a 32 on the front, and Typically, we don't get 8K recording on the front, but 4K 60, a main sensor on the back and a main sensor on the front work really nice. Gaming, no question, this is going to run as good as any other 888 device on the market. Although I will say having 6 gigs of RAM may be a little bit of a limiting factor, so you may want to clear your RAM and make sure that you run as optimal as possible. The AI enhancement, or the enhancement button that I showed you guys to be able to turn on the full power of the 888, will consume more power, more battery power from your phone. If you're running it at 120 frames per second, that's unfortunately going to also do the exact same. Out of the box, you do get it running 120 Hertz, which is a little bit different. And since there is no resolution difference, only at 1080p, it's going to stay at that experience. But as far as AI enhancement, this is something you want to be aware. What I did in here to be able to just kind of showcase to you guys what I have is I wanted to actually see what did Geekbench showcase with AI enhancement. So for me, this is what we were able to get. 1098 as far as the single core and 3141 for the multi-core, which is what to expect with obviously an 888 device. The temperature concerns that we've seen with the 888 are still present here, and I think this is why Samsung out of the box does not provide us the full power of the 888. So they actually give you a little bit of better battery life. Daily use, you probably don't need to have that AI enhancement turned on, but you should be aware that if you want to use it to the full power, those are the things you need to do. I'm not going to lie, I actually like what the S21 FE is offering. My only concern, or my only thing that I'm looking at right now, is the timing and pricing of this device and when it was released and how much it's releasing for. So first and foremost, this is an S21 FE in 2022. This is literally weeks before we see what the S22 is going to be launching in the near future. So something to keep in mind, if you're looking at to buy the best of what Samsung has to offer, I still would probably recommend going for an S21 Ultra or even an S20 Ultra from a couple of years ago. Surprisingly, these things hold up really nicely. And or of course, you could definitely wait for the S22 Ultra or the S22 series when those are announced. Is this going to be the best option that we can get from Samsung at this point? Unfortunately not. This is really more, I feel like, kind of like trying to give us a best mid-ranger experience from Samsung. So somewhere between what the S21s were doing last year and what the A series from Samsung is doing. So timing and placing is a little bit confusing for me, being we're a few weeks away, but definitely if you're looking for a solution from Samsung and you don't want to necessarily jump on the flagship, but still get some of the main benefits or the pricing of mid-ranger experience, I feel like the S21 FE could definitely fit the need that you're looking for. Let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of this device? Again, this is my initial 24-hour impressions of this phone. Of course, I'll try to answer all your questions in the comments below or hit me up on the socials. This is TK. Thank you very much for the support. I'll see you in the next one.